Hello and welcome. My name is Barry Good from the London School of Business and Finance, and we're here today to talk about marketing management, and in particular we're talking about the topic of market research. It's my great pleasure to welcome to the panel of experts Andrew Lancaster and Louisa Mazinta. Guys, welcome. Would you like to start with some introductions first of all, Andrew?
Hi, yes, I'm Andrew Lancaster. I work for Zy1. We are a digital marketing agency dealing with all things online, from natural search through to all of the different routes to markets that we have.
And I'm Louisa Mazinta. I'm CEO of the marketingsite.com, which is an online portal focused on marketing and communications.
So guys, welcome. We have been looking at the Wii Fit case history and analysing the effect that market research has had on Nintendo in launching this product. Now, market research has been hailed as very fundamental for the launching of this product. Andrew, do you agree with that, having read the case history?
I certainly agree that market research is fundamental to any strategy, whether it be online, offline, whatever you will be doing. It needs to be based on fact rather than assumption. We never want to be making assumptions when approaching our marketing and our potential audience. I'm not entirely sure if in this case we intended to focus on the female market. Or whether it, whether it was as planned as we're led to believe or not. I think it's open for discussion. I think it would be an interesting discussion to have.
Louisa?
I think we recognised that they couldn't go head-to-head with their current competition. The traditional gaming market was very much young men who were very focused on high-end gaming solutions and consoles. And the investment in terms of research and development, in terms of programming, etc., to develop these particular games was enormous. So we needed to find a blue ocean. They needed to find an area of the market that wasn't being tapped by their traditional competitors. So I'm convinced that they did in-depth research in terms of looking at those opportunities, where the opportunities were, and decided to introduce some form of disruptive innovation in the sense that they recognized that they could target the family market with a more low-end type of gaming experience, but that would engage the family in activities that were fun, entertaining, and could create an experience. And in targeting that market who weren't traditional gamers, they didn't necessarily have to go with the same level of investment in terms of the technology.
Okay.
I think that's exactly it. I think that the fact that their price point was so different to the likes of the PlayStations and the Microsoft Xbox 360. I think that the price point was so drastically different that opened the market up. And I think you're exactly right that it's a family-based sort of console that doesn't necessarily aim itself at the hardcore gamer that wants to sit down and play a very, very graphical sort of first player, get involved with the live side of things where they're hitting the internet and sort of playing against their friends in foreign countries. It was literally bringing the family together. What could they do to bring the family together? And it will have been their market research that will have allowed them to understand just how they could do that. They could make things simpler. And that's what the gameplay is. It's simple.
Absolutely. And the other beauty of how they approached it is that they bundled a couple of games into the console, which their competitors weren't doing, so that when you bought the Wii console, you got a couple of games that you could start to play. And then introduced Wii Fit, which was really targeted at the moms and the women market, because it was about getting your kid up from the television or up from their computer screen and getting them more active and having a health benefit associated with the gaming solution.
Okay, great. Now, we know that the market that Nintendo were trying to penetrate was very competitive, that it's saturated in many areas, and that they weren't going to be able to compete with some of the other well-established gaming companies that were already there. So for anybody or any business that's in a very competitive marketplace, just how important is market research? And how should a company go about it? Louisa?
It's absolutely critical. It's critical in understanding the needs of your marketplace. It's critical in understanding where the gaps and the opportunities lie for innovating in a product sense, from a distribution sense, from in every single way. You cannot possibly think of either expanding on a current market or entering a new market without having done thorough, in-depth research in terms of what the market needs are.
Okay.
Very, very much so. It is vitally important. You know, whether you're trying to introduce a new product to market and therefore going down some traditional marketing roads and some traditional research routes, sort of surveys, sort of big focus groups, as we touched on earlier, or you're trying to sort of appeal to somebody looking for product and or service, so away from brand. So again, they are two very different forms of market research, but two very important. So when we talk about product and service, and we're not trying to introduce a new product or we're not trying to introduce a brand into a marketplace, we want to understand online, is there a demand for our supply? If there is a demand for the supply, what are the right keywords to be using, and then understand, well, who's currently being found for those keywords? What is it that they're doing to be found? So starting to pull their strategies apart. Okay. So two quite simple things online is understanding the correct words and then understanding who your competitors are and starting to put your strategy based on factually what it is that they're doing and how you can better it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes customers won't necessarily know what it is that they don't have.
Sure.
So very often, particularly with a case of which was very disruptive in terms of how it was approaching a marketplace that was very focused on the youth and on young men, they created a whole new opportunity and a whole new market segment. It's not necessarily that they went out and said to women, what kind of game would you like? Mm-hmm. It was probably more a case of saying, what is the need in this marketplace? What do an untapped market like women and mothers are looking for their kids? What is it where is there an opportunity for us to expand and create a new market as opposed to not? So if you understand the market need, you can innovate in order to meet that need.
Okay. So we've quite clearly established that it's an important thing to do, and if you get it right, it can yield huge dividends. Mm-hmm. We know Nintendo have got it right with the Wii, they've obviously gone about their market research in the right way. Now, we know that that's not always the case for many companies, and they get it wrong, and their research tells them the wrong information, or they interpret the information incorrectly. Mm. What do you think Nintendo did right here in terms of their market research process? Louisa?
Well, I think they obviously got a sense of where the gap was. And they were able to create an innovative product that targeted a particular segment of the market that had been ignored in the gaming arena up until that point. And it's hard. And very often traditional methods of research don't necessarily give you the data that you need that will help you to make the right strategic decision about your business. And as you say so aptly, it's very often because of the mindset that you have about your industry or your category, you might well misinterpret the data. So I think you need to go in without any preconceived notions, and you need to look at it and you need to extract the opportunities from the data that you're presented with from the research you do.
Okay.
Well, I think this is where data comes in so well, is the fact that sort of if we look at the online sort of proposition and what that allows us to do with research and market research is to take somebody away from the fact that they believe that they're being researched, that they are part of a focus group, that they are sort of being surveyed, and it's to literally monitor them whilst they don't know that they're being monitored. And I don't mean that in a sort of suspicious kind of way. I just mean it in the sense that online we can understand what that person's doing without them necessarily knowing it, and as a result they act as they would do normally. They don't try to please you when you're asking questions and they think that they're giving the answer that they should be giving. They don't do any of those things. We're just quietly looking at what they're doing. We're understanding where they're clicking, how they came to us, how did they come to us, what are the terms that they use, who are the people that they're friends with, all of the different things that research gives us is fundamental. Unfortunately,
traditional methods of research, as you said, don't necessarily give you the results that you're looking for. There have been some really fascinating developments in the research arena where they've combined the neuroscience and how the brain works, how it thinks when in a purchasing situation, in a way that allows them to understand the unconscious or the subconscious triggers that drive people to make brand decisions and make purchasing decisions. There's also been a lot of work done in metaphor development, storytelling, to help extract what people will truly do as opposed to what they say they'll do using traditional research methods.
I mean, I have to admit, asking somebody what they want it does appear like a dangerous strategy, doesn't it? Whereas there are other sources of information available to us now. Technology enables us to analyse people's purchasing habits and their buying habits. How should market research be tempered with some of the other technological advances that are available to us, do you think?
Well, I think that they have to be sort of integrated. I mean, yes, okay, I think traditionally the costs can get quite prohibitive when you're talking about focus groups and you're talking about market research and traditional surveys. But I think maybe if we then try and offset that against how cheaply we can sort of get far more detailed information online, you can potentially have that holistic thing, but kind of offset one cost maybe against the other, because you do need that sort of that rounded picture. Otherwise you're only getting sort of potentially one side of the story.
Okay. Louisa, anything to add?
Well, I mean, with any company, you really need to understand your target market. You need to understand what their needs, their wants, and their desires and their aspirations are. And you can use a whole range of techniques to help you get that information. The deeper your pockets, the more budget you have, the more you can go into the traditional research approach. But there are certainly very effective ways to observe customers' behavior by capturing data about every single point of contact they have, every purchase, everything that they do, and by analysing that data and making decisions based on it.
Okay. How can companies go about validating their data? I mean, we live in an information age where companies are probably drowning under the amount of information through market research and consumer behaviour. How should companies go about interpreting that information so that they don't make serious business errors in launching products where there's no viable market?
You need to capture the data that you need. In other words, nothing extraneous. Look for the information that is going to be relevant to you being able to drive your business growth forward. And you need to be consistent in terms of the data that you capture over a period of time. So if you're researching this one day and this another day and this another day, you're never going to have a clear picture, and it's never going to inform your strategy going forward. So be consistent in terms of the types of information you capture, and you will see the pictures. The pictures will absolutely, in terms of where you need to go as a business, will be very clear to you.
Okay, good. Andrew?
I think that's exactly it. I think sort of looking at the online arena, we can get bogged down with the amount of data that we have. There's just so much of it that you actually end up not being able to analyse it effectively, because the cost and the time involved in actually effectively sort of managing and analysing that data, you just get lost in it. Whereas I suppose traditionally you can set out clear goals, clear KPIs, the specific things that you want out of your research, and you can make sure that that's what you stick to. In the online market, you don't really have the control. The information is coming in, and we just need to understand how to best interpret that information and take something usable out of it. I think the problem could arise, or currently where we are, is that there is so much data. How do we sort of effectively analyse it without getting bogged down?
Okay, good. Now, we asked our viewers a question regarding the impact of market research on Wii's business strategy, or Nintendo's business strategy in launching Wii, and it seems fairly apparent from the discussions that market research was significant. So, market research here to stay. How do we see it evolving in the future, do we think?
Absolutely crucial for any business, for any new product launch, for any growth strategy for a business. Because customers are changing, their needs are changing, the world around them is changing. You need to stay up to date, and you need to know how their needs and wants are changing over time.
Okay, Andrew, concluding comments?
Completely. That it's exactly that. That whether you're looking to take a new product to market, whether you're looking to increase your market share, whether you're looking to get into globalised markets, it all comes back to the quality of the market research that you do, and then actually taking something away from that and implementing it. If you don't do the research, if you don't get the fact, you can't base a strategy. Your strategy must be based on fact and no assumption.
No, that sounds like good advice. Well, that concludes our session today, so I'd like to thank you both for your time.
Thank you.